Hello and welcome to this episode of Hobby Banter. This series is especially for you, so I can keep you a bit of company whilst painting, and I'll just be talking a bit about some hobby stuff and stuff that happens in my everyday life. What happened to me over the past couple of days, week, and in the meantime I'll be painting a bit. So you can paint for yourself a little bit whilst I'm doing this. Today I'll start working. Well, not really start working. I'll continue working on my Dragon Prime, which I want to get painted this year. And I figured, you know what, this series is absolutely nice to work on this model. Ignore the yellow. It's going to be a Ively Leviathan. So I bought this second hand, and it already had the yellow carapace. It will be purple, as it should be. It was a bit damaged, so I just covered that up with extra basing material on the base, as you can see here, and just covered that tail in a bit. I just noticed some mold lines that were still on there, so I scraped them off. It's not a big of a deal. It's not in the recesses, and if it is, it's not going to be disturbing. I'll just paint over this area anyway. So let me know what you're going to be working on. I'll start just with some bone white. So it's a bit late in the evening now. Kind of had a bit of a rough day today. I'll add a bit of thinner to the bone white. This morning I went to the vet with my cat, and which I've had for what's it, 14 and a half years now, because she had some trouble with her fur. It started to look like dreadlocks, basically. I'm not sure about the English word for that, so I'll just call it like that. I have a bit of a cold, so every now and then I'll sniff a bit. I'm sorry for that. So I went there, and the vet examined her and took a blood test, and then it appeared that the kidneys of the cat weren't functioning very well. They were only functioning at like 25%. So instead of shaving the cat, the vet ended up taking putting the cat on a diet and taking a blood test and all that sort of stuff. So it was a bit of a bummer. The cat is at home. Good thing I didn't have to put her asleep. I got her years ago from a classmate. That girl was living in a dorm room, and she decided it was a wise idea to take a cat, and then she appeared to be allergic for cats. So if you live in a 4 meter by 4 meter room, that's going to be a horrible nightmare if you're allergic to cats, if you have a cat there. So I decided to give the cat a home and took her in. The cat, that is. The cat's female as well. And so I had her for a long time already, and I'm happy she's home, and hope to have her for a long time. But you know, if your kidneys are that bad, chances are you're not going to last very long. Presumably the same goes for a cat. So just as a quick note, I'm starting on the thorax, and I'll do the abdomen as well. And I'll first finish that area, before I actually go into the tail and the head. I just find that on larger models a more pleasant way of painting. Just paint a part and move on to the next next part. That is, if I'm not using my airbrush, obviously. So then, when I told about the cat, I'm not sure if yeah, I did tell about my little girl being taken to the hospital last week. She's okay again. She went to school this week, so that's all good. Thank God for that. And the other kids are doing fine as well. Even though my stepdaughter, she looked really bad this evening at dinner, so I think she's coming down with the flu. As for myself, I have a bit of a nose cold, but I'll go away before I turn into an old lady. So I'll survive once again. I've been sick so often past couple of years. It's ridiculous. So on to some hobby stuff. Last time I ended the video talking a bit about recasters would be recasting would be would make a nice subject. So I think we all can agree that recasting isn't super cool. However, and this is not to defend any illegal practices or whatsoever, but maybe if the prices would be a bit lower, there wouldn't be any recasters. That doesn't mean I condone recasting, by the way. I've seen more than enough recasts, and the quality of them in some cases is really good. And also you can argue that maybe some games wouldn't be as big as they are without recasters, like Horus Heresy, for example. Fortunate stuff is insanely expensive. However, it looks really good, and I get that the prices are high, but maybe just, dropping like a couple of percent off would make it less interesting to buy a recast product. There's more than enough places where you can just basically go online and buy recasts, and some even provide regular plastic kits and recast, and I think that will be resin then, but the price difference between the plastic GW kit, for example, any of them, compared to recasts of it, that price gap isn't that big, so that automatically makes it far less interesting to buy, especially if you go third party and buy your stuff from Element Games or Wayland, or, well, you will know there's more than enough of those type of web shops. So this week, no, let's stick to recasting first for a bit. There's quite some. If you're not sure if you have a recast model, they typically come in pretty dark resin, and you could, if you want to, if you're not sure, you could check this by drilling a little hole in it and then smell quite a lot of the recasters use different types of resin, and it tends to really smell bad if you drill a little hole in it. And you can, if you take a regular, let's say, Forge World item, doesn't really matter if it's Forge World or any other manufacturer, they typically don't have that type of smell. They have a different smell. So it's something that you could do to check if what you have is legit or is a knockoff. I'm not here to judge anybody if they do buy recast models. That's up to you completely. I don't care, couldn't care less. Well, I think at a certain point I could, if it would put companies like Games Workshop out of business, but I don't see that happen anytime soon. I actually watched a video earlier this week about 3D printing, and there's already a couple of miniature manufacturers jumping on that bandwagon. I think that's a smart move. So I wouldn't be surprised if within a couple of years we'll see Games Workshop start selling 3D printable files, so that you can just at home print your own Space Marine or Trigon, or I'm not gonna say Titan, but well, why not? They can just sell you the parts. The file can print parts, so the printer can print parts, and the file will be in parts. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen in within a couple of years actually. Still think the fee will be what you'd have to pay for it would be pretty good, because it obviously has to be worthwhile for a company to do that. And if you ever listen to the Long War, they consider Games Workshop to be a company that sells rules, and that next to that happen to sell miniatures to use with those rules. I don't fully agree on that, because I actually nowadays start to get the feeling that asking money for rules is a bit outdated, and there's a lot of companies already out there that will just give you rules for free. And obviously Games Workshop is doing that as well, and that they need at least their cost back on their books, because I think their books, their general rule books, dropped in price a bit as well. I'm not sure. I like to have a book, so I hate to read stats from my phone and constantly have to scroll, and yeah, that just annoys me, so I'll just end up buying the book anyway. But tell me how you feel about the recasting subject. I think it's an interesting subject to have some discussion about. I think I'm going to have to stop the camera for a bit just to blow my nose, because you don't need to hear that. I'll just finish this little part here. Because the sniffing gets kind of annoying. I think it's going to get annoying for you to listen to as well. So, with that being gone, I just realized I didn't tell you what type of brush I'm using. In case you're wondering, this is a Winsor & Newton size 1. So we already have the one half done. So now I'll move on to the other half. And then I can start building up the highlights. So then, earlier this week, Igor and me, we played a couple of games of Kill Team again. We also recorded a Q&A. We're also playing a bit of Shadespire, but we first want to get the first battle report completely edited before we record more. So we're just now doing a bunch of practice runs in Shadespire. The first games I really didn't like it. There's this crit effect in there that just negates everything else that happened, and yeah, sometimes it gives really dumb situations. For example, this huge corn lord shows up. He's gonna try and pummel a goblin, and then he doesn't throw a crit and the goblin does, and no damage is done. Whereas the corn lord would have just smashed the goblin into oblivion. So that's like that the first couple of games that kind of ticked me off. I don't really like that aspect, but now after like 7-8 games that we've played, it's getting better. I actually enjoyed the games we played this week. We played with Steelheart Champions and the Dorks. Forgot their name. But it actually was good fun. So now I'm starting to look forward and get some more Shadespire. And so I ordered the Sepulchral Guard and the other Stormcast Warband as well. What's their name? The ones with the bird. Because together with what Igor has, we then have all warbands available right now. So yeah, we get to play a bit with that as well. However, I was heading to that Kill Team game, and I'm really looking forward to the new Kill Team expansion. By the way, I'm eager to find out how that works. But so we played with the Adeptus Astartes, and I had very low hopes for that team, but they appear to be pretty decent. I won't spoil any game outcomes or whatsoever in case you wanna see those, but yes, nice team. I think it's gonna be a great addition to the pool of teams we have available at the moment. I already announced that I'm working on a Grey Knight Kill team as well. They're just primed, so I'll start working on those tomorrow. I would have liked to work on them now, since I'm going to paint them using lacquers. I don't want to have that smell in the evening when it's in there. When I apply it in the morning, which I can tomorrow, because Thursday mornings nowadays I'm in the house all by myself. There's nothing here to disturb me, nobody here to disturb me. So clearly it's Wednesday evening right now. And it might be that by the time that you get to see this video, they are already done. 10 models shouldn't take me that long. And I'm not gonna. I have no intentions whatsoever to make an army out of them. Just a kill team. So that's just 5 guys with 5 replacements. So that we can fiddle around with it a bit. In the meantime, I've been working on the bikes for Speed Freaks as well. And I'm really looking forward to play some games of that again as well. We played a couple of games. But I don't want unpainted models in battle reports. To me, unpainted models in battle reports feel like watching a movie without sound. So, in general, the moment I see an unpainted model or models in bat reps, it's bye-bye. Now, clearly, everybody can do this any way they want, but I feel it shouldn't be that way. Models need to be painted. For a battle report, I have no issues whatsoever with playing with or against unpainted models. Absolutely not. You can't expect somebody to start a new army and have it painted in like 2 days. That's just sheer impossible. Well, depending on the army, obviously. If you'd pick custodies or something, you should be able to get a long way in 2 days. Maybe not have a prize-winning army or whatsoever, but at least, you know, spray them gold, paint in some parts, and then you can already paint a bit of red and brown and black in, and maybe some metals. You should be quite okay. And they should look good enough to play some games with them. And just always paint on models is better than unpainted models. Even if you're only applying the basic 3 colors and you only oblige to that minimum. I'm calling it a minimum, but it clearly isn't. It's a bit of the same discussion as what's tabletop and what's less or more than tabletop. I think it's in the eye of the beholder. My tabletop could be you saying, no, I'll throw this away. I'm not even gonna bother stripping the paint off. I'll just throw it away. Whereas somebody else might argue a complete different route and just say, no, that's not tabletop, that's a cabinet piece. So it's all thin lines. This also makes a nice discussion, but I think the recast discussion is a better one for now. We can always go back into what's tabletop and what's not. So for the upcoming week, what have I planned? I don't know. I had basically 2 appointments this week and both got cancelled. So I don't mind. I like that. I like an empty agenda. Less in there is more for me. I don't like a really busy schedule. It stresses me out. I think I've mentioned this before in some videos, but I have a history with depressions and stuff like that. And actually last year at a certain point I felt really bad. And I think the most horrible part about having a depression and certain other diseases is that you can't see it. My wife, for example, has fibromyalgia, which is seriously, it's horrible. Basically, it means she always is in pain, but you can't see it. But if you live with her, you do notice it. And she has this syndrome that makes her always feel tired. She's always tired. She can always sleep, and there's nothing that'll take that away or relieve that. Or there's no medication, no treatment, no nothing. And then, for example, if I am tired, I go to the gym and I work a bit out. If you see me, you wouldn't say that, but I do actually sometimes. Just don't tell anybody. If she'd do that, she'd actually harm and damage her body. So that's not an option. Basically, both those syndromes are contradicting each other. The one needs activity and movement, and the other one prohibits doing that because it will only get worse. So that's a fairly bad situation, actually. As far as we know, it's not lethal or whatever, it's just bad. And so I'm just checking how much time I'm at video wise. Because where I'm at now, I might just do the head as well, and then put on the first highlight from here on. So my aim with this army was to, and not only was, still is, to have a swarm. It's something I always wanted, and I really am taking joy in painting orcs, which actually is a bad thing because I like swarm armies. I like big armies. I play Warhammer because of two reasons. I want to move figures over the board and throw dice. So if I get to move more figures, I most likely get to throw more dice as well. So that makes games more interesting for me. Even though nowadays those armies are pretty much hated, especially in tournaments. Well, I don't really participate in tournaments, so that shouldn't really bother me. But a Tyranid army as a horde tends to be pretty good as well. So therefore, at the beginning of 8th edition, I set myself the goal to have every unit in the Tyranid Codex, and preferably the ones from 4th World as well, all painted at least once within a couple of years. So within 8th edition. As far as the 4th World models go, I nearly have all of them. I'm just missing the big flying one, the Harridan. So I might need to convince my wife I really need that one. Not sure. I don't really like the model, so I might just skip out on that one. I do have a Dimacaron, a couple of Melanthropes, Titan and the Hero Jewels. I also have an old Dragon from 4th World before the plastic one was out. And that one will be painted up as well. Also will make sure I don't have to buy a plastic Dragon. But that's for later. So I figured, you know, if I want to play, also if I want to play some battle reports, it's not really entertaining to constantly see the same army at work. So I figured I'd need to paint some stand-in units that I'm not planning on using in my regular army. And I already finished a Moloch and a Turvigon. So if I add this guy this year, and it's still January, so it's pretty early in the year, but it's for the paint challenge, next New Year's paint challenge. I can just start next year with adding like 2 or 3 more monsters, and then on those couple of models, those monsters, can rather quickly change the entire army around into something completely different. So I might just take 2 Carnifexes and a Toxicrene, for example, because it's also pretty interesting, obviously, to see models that you don't often see. And Toxicrenes you don't often see. I do get why, they're not that good. But then again, I don't really care about what's good and what's not. I just want to play with the models that I like. Remember when I started out back in 7th edition with 40k, that I, without knowing how good it was, I bought a war convocation for the Adeptus Mechanicus. And I ended up just annihilating opponents in like 1 turn. And that actually was the point where I decided I'm gonna redo a Tyranid. I'm gonna redo my Tyranids, or do a new Tyranid army, because that's absolutely not what I want to play now. The war convocation was just so insanely good. Getting all those free upgrades and no plasma overheats, and then at a certain point I didn't even max it out. I didn't maximize the units or go to the very far limits of what the possibilities within that list would have been. But if one unit of 4 dudes just in 1 round of shooting just shoots away a Raid Knight, that's just insane. That's way too powerful. And I'm talking about Cataphan destroyers with the heavy grav cannons they could wield. I believe they had like 6 shots each. And then you could give them reroll once, 2 hits, and all kinds of shenanigans. Yeah, it was a bit much. So the moment I started to realize that, I think I didn't use it anymore. And then at a certain point, those Hemothrope plasma thingies came out, and their rules basically said that if you had plasma in your army, and you were within a certain distance, I believe it was 3 inches, something of that, one of those, you would your plasma weapon would up from, if it didn't have a template, to a small template. If it had a small template, it would turn into a big template. So then I believe there were also the destroyers with they already had like 3 templates, 2 templates a piece to shoot with. Since you couldn't overheat in a war convocation anyway, if they would, take 6 of those guys, if you would have done that, move them close to the plasma reactor, Hemothrope thingy, and they would just dish out like 12 of the big templates back in 7th edition plasma. So that's not cool. Um, and even the calibers in the regular units, I believe they had 3 shots in 7th edition. I'm not sure. It's not really important, obviously, because we don't play 7. At least I don't play 7th edition anymore. We're not there anymore. Yeah, they became regular templates, just the smaller ones, which already is yeah, that's pretty big if you got struck by that. It was pretty devastating. So after a while, I found out that because I was under the impression that everybody would have such sort of like formations, and then I found out that wasn't the case. Because I stopped 40k, I think, in like around 5th edition. And I really only played fantasy, and actually didn't do anything with the hobby for a couple of years. So, and my hope was that GW would have learned a thing or 2, 3, 5,000, God knows how many. Especially with power gaps between armies. And well, at that point they clearly didn't. I think nowadays they are doing a far better job having the FAQs and the erratas and the chapter approved on a yearly basis. So even though I don't really get the latest chapter approved, there's far too many point reductions in there. For tournament play, they changed it from 2k points to, I believe, 1850 it is now. Maybe 1750. And then they do this amount of point reductions so that all the armies can grow back to the size they were like 6 months ago. And then in a couple of months they'll decide, oh no, let's change the point values for tournaments to 1500. And then next year, in the chapter approved, you kind of see what I'm getting at. On the other hand, I do understand why they do point reductions. You know, if you're just casual Bob like me, you'll be tempted if you just have 2,000 points, and they just took away 200 points. Yeah, you need to go out and buy more stuff. And in the end of the day, Games Workshop is a company. They need to make money. They have shareholders, which all is good. As long as they have a semi-decent CEO, I suppose. What they have right now. No, he's more than semi-decent. I think he changed Games Workshop for good. Yeah, for sure, for us as the community and as customers, it absolutely didn't get worse. And now there's another commotion about a 20-cent price raise on paints. That will happen, I believe, in February. Well, I don't use a lot of GW paints or Citadel paints, so I'm not gonna be too worried about it. On top of that, here in the Netherlands, we just had a tax raise, so life's gonna be more expensive anyway. You know, I can cry about it, but in the end, I just have to deal with it. We all have, and all the discussion. I've seen all the discussions come back. Yeah, like 20 years ago, you could buy 3 rhinos for £20, and dude, those shoe boxes I don't call rhinos. Even though the current rhino model might need an update, but the model is pretty okay. I think you can still do good things with it. And if you really don't like it, buy the Dimos patterns from Forge World. They are the better looking model out of the two, in my opinion, that is. And they're also very easy to paint, so look, my nose starts running again. The joys of having a cold. I really feel like I'm always sick, or ill a bit. So I'm gonna drink a bit of my tea. I'm already in on 40 minutes, I see, so I'm really not going fast. But usually when I paint this, these first layers, they take longest because they basically essentially decide how a model will end up looking. They decide where the highlights will be. This is an initial highlight, but not a decisive one. That's going to be the last one. But this one does basically line out where the last one will be. So this one doesn't need to be very precise, but it does need to be in the right spots and not in the shaded areas and stuff like that. So and therefore usually these first coats, they take me most time to paint, to just block in, and especially if you, when I'm further down the model, if I don't, if I need to be careful and not hit any other parts, it's gonna take more time. But well, I'll manage. I'm sorry, I'm quickly finishing my tea. And then I'll continue. So. And like I mentioned before, in the previous episodes, I took the idea for this series from Pete, from Mini Warzone, and if you like these type of videos, I can strongly recommend to go to his channel and check his on the bench series out, where he basically does the same thing, but since he's more experienced in doing it, he is a bit better in doing it as well, and he deserves the support. He has a great channel. I'm always looking forward to see his next video or listen to his next video. I listen to his on the bench videos whenever they come out, and I'm having an hour of painting or longer. I'll listen to him. I'll send him a message about what I've been painting. So I actually was pretty honored on the first one that Pete joined in as well and left a comment on mine. That made me that really made me pretty proud. I'll put a link to his channel in the description if I don't forget, and if I do, just remind me to put a link down in the description, because without him I wouldn't be doing this right now. Well, I probably would be painting this model, but not with the camera on. And to me, these type of videos are useful if I can just help one person with it. Just paint a bit more, or get stuff painted and finished, then I'm happy. And that's basically the whole reason why I started this channel, to help other people. Might it be through a tutorial, or giving a little bit of entertainment with a bad rap, or through a Q&A and all that sorts of stuff. What's that? Oh, that's just going to be white. And these kind of parts always give me trouble. I'm never sure what colors to paint them. You know, I clearly know what color palette I'm using, which colors I get to use, and for some parts it's obvious, like the hook here is going to be red and this is going to be flashy toned, and that's all already decided. But then you have like, oh, there's like one little outstanding part here. What color should that be? So I'll just now paint it white, and if I later on decide it needs to be a different color, I'll just repaint it in another color. And as far as second-hand models go, well, depending on how it looks, if it doesn't need stripping, I won't strip it. If there's a primer on there, you don't need to reprime it, because there's already a primer there, and you don't really want to apply 2 coats of primer on a model unless you have no choice. No, this is going to be this isn't going to be white. This is going to be a different color. I decide that right now. So sometimes I do talk a bit to myself, but then again, I'm maybe not the most sane person in the world. I'm painting plastic toys with the aim of playing games with them. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there might be people in the world who would like to argue about that. I'm not going to argue about that. I love it. I think that's pretty clear, but already looking forward to the next gaming session with Igor. So much fun. So happy he wants to record the battle reports with me. We've always played good games in the past, stupid games as well. And although those type of shenanigans and funny moments are now, yeah, we are really enjoying the games we play, because all those funny and weird moments come back. And I think as far as changing, I changed for the better, because I was in the past quite competitive, gaming wise, and I completely lost that. So I think it should be more fun for Igor to play against me now than it was in the past. So somebody closed the door. Don't know if you could hear that, but it's shut, that's for sure. Now this part's giving me the creeps. I painted it white up here, but I think I need to paint it red entirely. So I'll just do that. I actually thought, oh, I'll quickly do the head and then I'll apply a highlight, but we're already going for nearly 50 minutes, so I think there's not going to be any highlighting. I'll save that for the next time. Maybe I get to do 2 highlights then. Probably not. This is taking a bit long. But then again, I don't consider this model a punishment to paint, especially with all the guns I painted over the past couple of years. And I'm going to paint for the upcoming year. Maybe it would have been wiser to paint a couple of guns in this episode, but I think most of you who follow the channel have by now seen the guns, so I actually nearly feel guilty that I have to show you like 60 more this year. But then they'll be done. Well, maybe some other high fleet colors, that would be nice, but I could take something like a Gene Stealer for that as well. Since I have some Gene Stealers built with weird upgrades that, well, I'll never use. Especially since with the whole idea I designed my army in is based upon having models as cheap as possible to be able to take more. Because having more wounds on the battlefield, I feel, is, like I explained before, I want to play with as many models that I can. If it's my movement phase, I want to move my army around. So you'll never see me play like a gun line, or if I make an Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard, just what you want, just how you want to call it, army, there probably would be nearly only infantry with transport vehicles, and then maybe a couple of tanks to back them up. Maybe like 2 Lehman Russes and a Hellhammer or a Stormlord or something. Probably a Stormlord because it has transport capacity, so I can transport more dudes over the table. And I'll be driving around with all of them, because yeah, that's how I want to play a game. So lately I've also been looking a bit more towards Age of Sigmar, especially also because Igor has an interest in it. I have an army, a Stormcast Eternal army. I still have to paint more for that as well. But yeah, one day. I had a whole bunch of beastmen lying around here as well, so I just gave those to Igor so he could paint those up for his army. Which is nice. So we get to hopefully, most likely not this year, since I already have more than enough to paint, get to play some Age of Sigmar on the channel as well. Well, I don't technically need to paint anything to play, but I feel Igor has more than enough to paint as well. So, and I don't want to put any type of pressure on him. Painting is not what he enjoys, so I'd rather have him play a game and then paint one model than paint 10 models and losing the will to paint anything more and to play games, because yeah, that would be wouldn't be good now, would it? Not even looking at recording battle reports for that purpose. I never would want anybody to lose their will to do anything with the hobby. Just gonna strengthen the bone a little bit back here. Now this layer is as good as done. I have to say now this is the third time recording one of these videos, and it gradually becomes easier and more natural. I hope that you have that same impression. I notice I don't need to remind myself to keep talking, and well, once or twice, but I believe the first one I had it several times, so that's a good thing. And I feel like I've been pretty productive as well. Might have been a bit faster, but yeah, well, that happens. It's not really a big deal. No rush. We're still pretty far from December 31st, so it does need to be done tomorrow. And I think this is the model that's going to take the most time this year. Even though I'm going to paint a bigger model, but that's not going to take the amount of time that this one's going to take. So let's see where we're at. We're at 55 minutes. So let's see what I can do, because starting a new layer now would be pretty useless. So what do we have? What do I have? Oh, I have these. I have the bikes. So and they need some white to be painted in. Yesterday, I'm sorry, I turned away from the camera whilst talking, and I don't have a mic on me. I use the camera mic for this. So these have some white that needs to be blocked in, as long as there is some white actually. So I'll get my cold grey. Put a bit on the palette, dish, whatever. Thin it down a bit. I'll do this Gretchen first, because he's going to be the most work, because he is like this whole one white thing. Bye bye. So like I said, I'm so looking forward to play more some games with the orcs, both Speed Freaks and Kill Team. I should manage to get the Kill Team and these bikes done in February anyway, so we can then nicely have like a couple of days of playing with orcs. And Kill Team really is a fun, or Kill Team Speed Freaks really is a fun game to play. Maybe you can really play it super serious as well, but I don't take games like that serious. I don't take any game too serious, but yeah, I'm actually hoping that there will be expansions for Speed Freaks as well. But well, I don't know. You know, having an expansion that allows you to to put models in your wagons and make it a bit Gorka Morka like. I never played Gorka Morka. I watched some battle reports on Mini Wargaming, and that looked like a whole lot of fun. So I'll finish this bike and then I'll end the video, and then I'll paint this color on the other bikes as well, because I want to have like a bit of progress for this week on the bikes. Oh well, and there's a shoot-up boy there, but he doesn't really count, does he? One orc doesn't make it October yet. Hey, that's kind of dumb. I shouldn't be doing that. So, I'll just end the video here before I start saying more ridiculous and dumb stuff. I'm gonna say thank you for watching. Let me know what you've been working on, and if you have a subject you'd like me to talk about in the next episode, let me know as well. Put it down below, and I'll see what I can do with that. And when I'll be recording the next one, I'll probably be continuing on the Trigon. I think it's a nice model to just paint in the series, or at least partially paint in the series. Since it's not really, you're not supposed to just look at me paint in the series. Obviously you're more supposed to listen to me. I got the camera a bit more zoomed in today. I hope you like that, and let me know. I can also zoom it further out. I can put it on the other side of the room, not even facing the paint desk, if you prefer that. I don't think that's the meaning, but let me know what you think, and if you see anything that I should change, also absolutely feel free to notify me on that. I perfectly realize this series isn't for everybody, so it's for the people who like listening to me rambling, or other people rambling. Doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna stop right now, because now it really turns into all sorts of bullshit. I'm gonna say thank you for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know, and see you next time. Bye bye.